Good morning. Today is Saturday, the 9th of November, and welcome to Saba's Way of Life. Today I'm going to talk about a mishmash of different things that have come into my mind that I wanted to share. And the reason I want to share these is because there have been too many connections that I've made between these mishmash of things. And I feel that you may make the connection, some of you who enjoy, well, if you're watching this channel, hopefully you're enjoying some of the content. So, first thing that I want to share is a story that I put up on Instagram a while back of Pamela Anderson. Now, those of you who are my age may remember Pamela Anderson, who was this Baywatch star, and she kind of started this trend of big breasts, well, obviously surgery and so on, and tiny waist, and running along in her bikini. And it kind of attracted so much attention and obviously poisoned the minds of so many young people. And this is going back to, because she is the same age as me. I think if I remember correctly, she is now 57 and it's exactly the same age as I am. And even me as a teenager got sucked in, as a late, I think I was in my 20s, got sucked in, a teenager, what she was doing, because, you know, she looked very beautiful, although it was a complete, we understand that, and she understands that now, complete fake beauty. But there was something that she said which I saw in one of her stories. So let me just explain. She's completely turned herself around. In so far as the realization hit her probably a while back, maybe 2-3 years, I don't know how long, that the recognition that, whoa, what was I doing? I was completely linked to the wrong way of thinking. And as a result, she completely renewed herself and recognized that what really matters is being authentic. Part of being authentic is, first of all, be authentic to the body you're in. You cannot be authentic in any way, shape or form, or live in your integrity if you are, and I'll put it in simple words, faking the body, the vessel that you live in any way. That is the most inauthentic way of living, and it is the most unintegrous way of living. That is not integrity. You have to remember there are a lot of individuals, many thousands of very dark, dense, linked to a dense frequency, that are putting out the opposite. And these people, unfortunately, I'm trying to think of the word to use, but they're disabled of the mind. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But what Pamela Anderson said in one of her recent stories was that, you know, she said, I look back, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact words, that I look back on what I was and who I was and what I was doing and why I was doing, and I realised I was living in a cartoon character. And I'm emphasising that because if you look now at some of the nonsense on Instagram, and I do look, because for me, at this stage, I'll tell you where I am at this stage, I'm not hooked in. I look to be aware of what's going on so that I can come back and glean the learning and then share with you. I'm at the stage now where none of this affects me. It did many years ago. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But she said that I was living in a cartoon character. And one day, and this is recently, in her 50s, she said, I recognised, I went into my garden. She bought her grandmother's old house and renovated it. Went into the garden and started to plant. This is really important. Started to grow her own food and plant her own food and tend the garden and spend time in silence. And she recognised, and this is when she went in, nothing on her face, just to be on her own, no makeup, no fakery. And she recognized that, God, this feels really good just to be me. And that's when she changed her life. And now what she's promoting, and yes, of course, she's been in the media eye, so she's using the media and the publicity. She's promoting that to young women, the message that you must just be you. But this is a message for humanity. It's not just to young women. It's for humanity. And this is important because where we are today, if those of you who understand cosmic wisdom or want to understand, we are at a place today where we have no choice but to embrace who we really are, because there is a huge amount of light entering our universe. I'm not going to go into the science behind it. There is a proper science behind it. And it's also talked about a lot in the book reading that I'm currently conducting, Cellular Awakening. I'm trying to do that every week. If you're interested, go back and listen to the last two. They're on a playlist that I've created. I've only done two, so it's easy to catch up. There's a huge amount of light that's coming in, and more individuals all over the world who are linked to a positive bandwidth. That light is coming in and they're recognizing this. And Pamela Anderson is just one of those many. But to all those who are still completely unaware of this, or think they're aware, but through their actions they're not, those individuals, unless they awaken to this and take action, are going to implode, because that old dimension is being destroyed. It's going. As truth starts to emerge about who we are, and not just who we are, but the lies that have been told through media about health, about politics, about all the different areas are coming to light. Look at the word light. The truth is emerging. More and more individuals are starting to ask the right questions. So it is absolutely imperative that we take heed and awaken to who we are and start living in pure authenticity. Another person I want to mention is Dr. Aseem Malhotra. Dr. Aseem Malhotra is a cardiologist that has been screaming about the dangers of big pharma and how they are just interested in pure profit, but at the actual expense of the lives of so many innocent human beings, not least because of what happened in 2020. I don't want to elaborate on that because that will affect the algorithms and the ability for people to see this video, but you know what I'm talking about. I also posted a story that he put up. There's a very, very good documentary he's just recently released. Just look up his name, and I put it up in the stories, which is, I think it's called I can't remember the name of the documentary, Big Pharma film or something like that. No, Big Pharma, I can't remember. I will put it in the description, but pay for that. It's £9.99 to view, $9 or $20, because mainstream isn't going to put a documentary out like this. These are individuals that want the truth to be known, and they have to find people that will film it, and then they have to crowdfund to get money for it. So for that information, it's worth $10 or £7 or £18, whatever it is, but then you can share it with your friends and family and you've got it for life. But in that, if you don't want to get that, then there's plenty on his website that you can read about. But he discusses very clearly that big pharma and the whole industry are psychopaths. Now, psychopathic nature of people is a frequency. It is not just, see, when you are living in an environment where it's all psychopaths at the moment in terms of how they're treating people, killing people, only a psychopath can do that. then you'll understand that's a frequency which is in the Western world, which is vibrating in the Western world. And it's so far removed from the frequency of nature's principles. So when you're living in that frequency, if you're in those environments, you become that frequency, and you yourself become a liar. You yourself become a psychopath or a narcissist. That word is being bandied about everywhere, but it's true. Narcissistic tendencies come from a frequency that you're living at, and it becomes the norm. And it's really dangerous, not just dangerous because of those individuals. They themselves are going to implode because of that light coming in. That dimension is gone. It will no longer survive. It will no longer survive. And I recommend you remove yourself from it. So I'm giving you the connections between what Pamela Anderson has said and has done in her action to purify herself, purify those old patterns, and to move away from that old negative frequency. And she's clearly linking herself to a positive bandwidth, the high frequency aligned to nature's principles, by spending time in nature itself. Nature is who we are. Nature's not separate to us. We are part of nature. So, and then I'm linking that to Dr. Aseem Malhotra and the big pharma scandal where so many millions have died as a result of events in 2020 and before. You only have to understand that pharmaceutical prescription medicines are killing people. It's how it's done. Now, on that note, I want to explain. This is important. We're in the season now of colds and flus. A lot of people are suffering from what is known as long C. You know what that C stands for. And many of those individuals, most of them are ones that have actually taken the therapy, the therapeutic for it. Yeah. And they don't know what to do to heal themselves. Well, one of the easiest ways to do that is to use a big pharma tactic and shove a whole load of antibiotics down you. Now, those who understand antibiotics will understand that antibiotics, actually the meaning is anti-life. They will kill all the bad bacteria that may be causing, it's the pathogens that are causing the symptoms, but they also kill all the goodness in your gut microbiome, leaving it very weak and over time susceptible to more pathogens because those pathogens mutate. The pathogens are the bacteria that damage our organism, and they mutate and they become resistant, and you have to start all over again to rebuild and nourish your microbiome, which is the seat and the heart of health, the gut. Because we are still, even though that particular paradigm is dying, we are still in the environment more or less. It's let's fix the issue, but not the cause. So mainstream medicine still works on the basis of allopathy, which is going back to Florence Nightingale's time of the Crimean War, where it's about fixing that soldier who's unwell. If it's a broken leg, fix it and get him back out onto the battlefield. And that works very well in crisis care. You know, if you have a broken bone, you're not going to be drinking herbal tea to fix it because it's a broken bone. Use your common sense. Get it fixed. You will need crisis care and certain medications to help. But for chronic conditions, chronic, which means they keep coming back over a period of time, you cannot use the same mechanism of putting a plaster over the wound. Because what will happen is that, let me give you a simple example, that you have a headache. And when you have a headache, what do most people do? They go and take a paracetamol or something stronger than that to fix it. The headache's gone, but the cause of the problem hasn't gone. And it may disappear for a week or some months, but the actual cause is growing inside the body and it's transferring to different areas of the body that will then manifest later as a different type of dis-ease. Because your disease starts and it stems from the gut, and then if it's not dealt with in the right way, it goes up, 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 up into the head when you can't start thinking correctly. And that's very dangerous, but it's happening to a lot of people. So the idea is to understand this and then think of natural ways of healing. I'm going to discuss in another video on how I have used a natural way of healing, of dealing with these long C symptoms. And one of the most economical, cheapest ways and most effective ways of doing this, and I'm saying this through my own research, you can then do your own research. I'm not suggesting for a minute that you do it. We're at the stage in society now that what we say on media we have to be careful of, because that can be used against us. So I'm making it very clear here that I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm suggesting you do your own research. My battery's low. But I use well, it's actually over here. It's a nebulizer, which a lot of nurses use. It's a nebulizer that you just breathe in, and you can breathe in using distilled water or good quality water. Put it on and steam comes out, and you can use it through your nose, or you can use it through here, where you breathe in pure distilled water, and you can add oregano oil, or you can add thyme, or you can use hydrogen peroxide. Now understand what hydrogen peroxide is, depending on the strength. You've got to do your research. H2O, water, O2, H2O, O2, and oxygen. Turn this off. So when you do that, you are putting oxygen into your lungs and into your body, and it goes straight, it actually affects the gut first. You would have to do your research on that. I've done my research over many years on all things alternative and all things preventative that have been used in ancient medicine for donkey's years, but that have been wiped out of our system. And because we don't know how to think anymore, and we look externally for answers, we're not bothered to do our own research. Can't be bothered. You're going to have to be, because when you're looking at what's happening around you, unless you do go back to what I said, you're going to implode with it. So do your research. There's a fantastic doctor called Dr. Paul Levy, who's been poo-pooed, obviously, just as Dr. Aseem Malhotra was. He's lost his job. He was put down in the media when he was all over the media initially, until he discovered what was going on. But these are the people that you need to question. Say, why? Why have they been taken off? Start looking into it yourself. I've spent many, many years doing that, which is no doubt one of the reasons why I'm in very good health at my age. And of course, I want to help others, which is why I'm sharing this with you to do your own research. All disease is very simple. There are three elements that are involved: sunlight, light, and oxygen, right? So you've got light, and you have oxygen and water. Most people are dehydrated. When you understand that it all begins there, and it's not a simple case of, oh, let me just drink a load of water. No. It's understanding how they work within your cellular biology. But always understand that if you get to the root of the problem, and that will take time because it takes time for it to build up and become disease, when you get to the root of the problem, it takes time, and it's a change in your way of life and your lifestyle. And magical things happen when you understand that. Very simple things, like going for a walk every single morning, like taking in sunlight, like eating real food, growing your food which is alive in the right soil that you've nourished. It's like repeat for those that have watched my videos. And then eating that, understanding the nature of food, how alive it is, how to cook it, how to eat it. Understanding how the interconnectedness of the people around you is important. It's very hard for me because I see people in my family and individuals doing things which think, what are you doing? But it's just, you can't change a way of thinking that's been drilled in since the Renaissance period. It's become part of the genetic way of thinking. And changing that way of thinking needs time, and you need to have the time so that you're not slaving trying to earn every penny and paying it in taxes. I want to finish, because it's now been 20 minutes, I want to finish on a really wonderful little story that is so, for me, was so inspiring, because it's a form of pedagogy where you help others. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at my local beautician. And I go to my local beautician because she's a very young Indian lady. It's cheap and cheerful. That's not why I go. I go there because number one, she's a lady from India who understands the old Indian ways to some degree. It's very simple threading and waxing, which have been used for God knows how many years, but also it's part of community. We know each other. I take her cake. She's been to my house. She's seen the garden, given her inspiration, and she has given me inspiration in many areas. So I went to the beautician, and while I was sitting there, I was talking. She asked me a question about some form of thinking and healing and how people are thinking nowadays. So I explained something to her. And while I was explaining, there was a young lady sitting waiting for treatment who had not been before. I think her sister had, or she was listening in. You can't not listen in because it's a small environment. And a lovely Pakistani lady, I think she's Pakistani or Indian, girl, I'd say. And she said, I couldn't help listening in, but I myself am reading about the metaphysical nature of society, and I completely agree and coincide with what you're saying. Very smart, intelligent lady. And what happened was, after the treatment, which didn't take long, 5-10 minutes, and for her too, we went for a coffee in the local village, and that's where we got to know each other. Well, actually, it's a cup of tea. I didn't have coffee. A cup of tea. I have coffee in the morning, one coffee, which is a mocha, and I'm trying to reduce that too. So during that conversation, the understanding and realization that this young lady has been studying metaphysics, but she's been doing it through Sufism and the work of Hafiz, for those of you who might know who Hafiz is, a Sufi poet, and other metaphysicians. And of course, I'm also studying perennial metaphysics through Frithjof Schuon and various other metaphysicians. And we shared and exchanged notes, and it was extraordinary because it's very rare that you meet people like that. And that's why when you have these meetings, it's no coincidence. So now I'm setting the backdrop. But what actually happened was, she herself works in education. Currently, she's in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, where she's left here and gone over there to do some work there. Yesterday, she sent me a message and said, how are you? Here's a book that I'm currently reading, because we're sharing text, which is great. And she's in her early 20s, very, very aware. There are so many young people who are so aware at the moment and intelligent. Not intelligent in the way you might think, but they have a greater intelligence that supersedes. It's almost like an intellectual wisdom, real in the word intellect, from a wisdom perspective, from a metaphysical perspective. She said, I'm reading this book, and she said, I'm currently in Dubai, and I'm here for a week before I go back to Abu Dhabi. And I kind of really like it here. But she said, I just felt like I wanted to ask you, what do you think? And I replied to her, because you can't, for someone like her, she already has an understanding. She just wanted confirmation. I knew she did. And I wrote to her and I said, well, understand that Dubai is an algorithm which is as far removed from reality as one could imagine. Now, I know this because I've lived there, and that algorithm sucked me in. They call it a bubble, but it's a very dangerous algorithm, which is not aligned to the laws of nature, but it's trying to mimic it. Very dangerous. So it's an algorithm which is as far removed from reality as one could imagine. There is a pull from a frequency that is very negative, a negative frequency, a bandwidth that it lives at. And it's the polar opposite to the spiritual and metaphysical nature of the work you love. I was talking to her here. And what I mean by this is that it mimics nature's frequency, but isn't. And her response to me was, oh, I know, it is so far from our natural environment as one could imagine. And I feel it gets very toxic very quickly. So I also explained to her the nature of Dubai from an artificial intelligence, AI perspective, that as many people as there are out there thinking it's the place to be, it is a very dense, look at the people there, look at the environment, look at the type of people it attracts. Still hungry for money. Money is energy, but the wrong type of energy. Still believing that that way of being is the only way to live, that we need money, and therefore let's earn that money through whatever means we can. Nothing is further from the truth. I will go into this another time in more detail. But AI, I would say it is probably the most advanced heart of artificial intelligence, being used the wrong way, not the right way. This isn't progress. This is regression, where humans have become humanoids and they're linked to this artificial frequency themselves without even knowing it. And if you're not in it and you're looking at people, I know there are people close to me, around me, who've completely changed. I know, because I almost did until I pulled myself out of it. Very dangerous. And I explained to her, be very careful of this artificial intelligence, because it's very, very, what's the word? Going back to the Pamela Anderson, it's very psychopathic, and it carefully molds you in, just as it's a narcissistic frequency. And she was feeling it. And I said, be very careful, you're a smart lady. And she said, no, I know. And I said, Abu Dhabi may not be much different, but at least it has some form at the moment of integrity in terms of unity, consciousness with family and environment. A little bit more traditional, going back to the old traditions. They're coming back, by the way. They're all coming back, because this way of living, the current way, is dying. It's imploding. And she wrote back and said, thank you so much. Now, this isn't about me helping her. This is pedagogy. This is where you're linking with people to the right frequency. Pedagogy means that you learn and then you teach and you learn from your student. That's how it works. Going back, this is a very important video, going back to the old days when spiritual traditions were taught, they weren't written down. That was considered very dense. They were learned by the sages and passed down through disciples. Don't mix that with religion. It's a form of religion, but not mainstream. They're passed down orally so that they're understood and felt. Now, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't write things down. We've moved from there, but that was the way. That's why the pedagogy system is very powerful. Even this, to you, is a form of pedagogy. Now, it's giving you the opportunity to go and research and learn. And do put comments down if you want answers to questions, because I'm not just going to flood description with things. I haven't got time to do that. I'm orally explaining this to you. It's very powerful, and it should move something in you. All right? So that's the message for today. Go back and listen to this video again, and do keep an eye on if you're somebody that's so easily pulled in to Instagram and other kind of things and you just scroll, then don't go to Instagram. Get rid of it. I had completely deleted all social media for a year before going back and starting again, because now I'm in control. And when I feel I'm not, I walk away. I can look at something and observe it and see it for what it is. And then I use it in my pedagogy to see what's happening. You can just see it, but not get attached to it, not get involved with it, not play with it. Just watch, and just some of the stuff I read is quite humorous. I look at it and think, wow, the derangement and mental illness is running so deep. How can I address this mental illness and help others? We are here to do that. And that the people like myself and I, we won't have many people tuning into our channel. You won't, because that old way is still prevalent until it slowly collapses. It's collapsing, and less people every day are taking any heed of that kind of a frequency. But it will take time. It could take 10, 15, 20, 30 years. A complete paradigm shift can take 50, 60, 70 years to fall in place. But we're here to get that ball rolling. So much I could discuss about this side of life that I'm talking about. Have a wonderful Saturday and get out if you haven't, or get in the garden. I'm going to be planting my garlic today and doing some transplanting with some of the greens, the organic mustard greens that I've got in the greenhouse. Have a lovely day.